Right, so let me introduce everybody to you. On our left is the inimitable Mr. Philip Clark, the channel manager of Casio Electronics. They've all got better job titles than I have, by the way. It's far better. To his right, to his left rather, is Chris Mcintyre-Brown, who is the Associate Director of Futuresource Consulting. To his left is Adam Harvey, who's got a title to die for, really. He's got Solution Architect, AV and Digital Media. If he hasn't got as many salary increases on each one of those, he needs to be shot. And he's at the University of Hertfordshire, and a very go-ahead chap. He's done lots of stuff in his environment. And at the end here, he was a very nice man called Mr. Kristian, who is AV Sales Director of Integrator GV Multimedia. And everybody will be very happy we haven't got C-Deck on the stand, so you want to head there. Don't worry, I take all the flack anyway, don't worry. If it's not you, it's someone else. Anyway, so we'll sort of kick off. We've got about 20 minutes or so. We'll see how the debate takes us, really. It's more of a discussion, just to find out what users and those involved in the market are doing now with AV and how they're creating environments, which are quite advanced in education, actually. I mean, a lot of people are doing some really interesting stuff. So it's just to find out what sort of challenges they've been facing and what the users themselves, what they've found at the coalface, what they've found good and bad and so on. So probably start off with a straightforward question. What issues educational AV buyers and users are facing, really? I mean, Adam, if I can kick off with you, I mean, you had quite a number of things there, didn't you? I mean, probably too long for me to go into, really, but you know, what's the most pressing thing in your mind? We can discuss the others as we go on, that facing higher education buyers and education. There's so many, aren't there? But what's the chief one?
I think for us, it's trying to provide the students with everything they need, because they all learn in different ways. So,
hang on, we're not getting any sound out your microphone. Is it switched on? Is that?
we have a red light.
It's switched on.
Hello.
Hello. Is yours, Adam?
No. Yes, it is now.
Oh,
yes.
it is now. You can put it right up to your
Right.
nose.
Okay.
Pretend you're singing My Way for Frank Sinatra.
I won't sing My Way. That would be
No,
no
you
one
can if you
would see
like.
that.
We might get more people on the stand then, you see.
Okay,
But
for
anyway,
us,
major trend gone.
it's you know, our students learn in different ways and our academics teach in different ways. So, you know, the issue for us is trying to provide environments that everybody feels comfortable learning and teaching in. So it's trying to, you know, provide the technology that's, you know, standardized, easy to use, reliable, robust, but in a number of different environments. So we're trying to experiment with different things at the moment. So from our standard seminar rooms and lecture theatres, we're trying to do different things, collaboration rooms, more informal lecture theatres. So rather than the teaching where, you know, people just stand at the front and spew loads of information to the student, it's just, you know, it's the whole flipped classroom thing as well. So trying to deliver the nitty-gritty, the core information about that subject beforehand, so you can actually use the contact time with the students in a meaningful way and like explore the things they don't understand. And for the technology bit for us is just trying to provide things that everybody feels comfortable using, you know, and like I said, lots and lots of different environments for people to feel comfortable with.
Well, what drives that demand? What basically drives you to do what you do?
These days, the students are their customers. You know, they're paying the tuition fees every year, and there's a level of expectation about what we should be providing. Schools and academies, they've got, you know, lots of technology in them. You know, there's been recent initiatives, so, you know, we're seeing students coming up and having collaboration and interactive screens and everything, and going to school and college with iPads as part of the normal piece of kit you carry around and using them as part of that course. You know, we need to be you know, following suit, really, and we need to be, you know, that technology has to be in universities. You can't get to a university and suddenly it's like, oh, we've gone back 10 years.
Yeah, it's not a substitute for teaching, I'm assuming here.
No. It's just, you know, it's not a substitute for teaching, but course delivery has to, you know, I think, you know, there is still the market for coming to a lecture, but it's also about different ways of delivering it. You know, every university's got virtual learning environments and lecture capture and, you know, in-class voting systems to gauge what's going on. I think it's providing that technology and providing learning and teaching in many, many different ways and environments, really.
How are the integrators keeping up, Kristian? What sort of things do you hear through your customers? I mean, what sort of things are they asking you, and does it involve you actually learning new skills to provide it?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we're having conversations with universities up and down the country, and things change all the time. We've obviously seen collaboration products more and more come into the fore, and it's not just flat panels in meeting rooms anymore and interactive panels. It's collaboration products which are moving into different spaces, into seminar rooms, into lecture theatres, into huddle spaces. So there are challenges with that, because obviously we need to, as a business, make sure our people are trained to sell it and support it. But also I hear challenges from our customers as well, because they too have to make sure that the people who are using the products are suitably trained.
This training thing is quite a moot point, isn't it, really? I mean, training is always a thing in education, isn't it, really, in a sense? It's difficult to predict, who needs the training or who should give it. Is it a given that it's, so often we meet so many people who just aren't trained when the stuff's in there. I think the teaching profession finds there's a bit of a difficulty with that, isn't there? Who provides it?
I think from our perspective, we as an integrator, we have to give training in terms of the fundamental use of the product. But I think it's true to say there is a gap there, because our training only goes so far, and I think that feedback there. And I think that it's important that we leave the customers with a good experience so they can carry that forward.
We hear a lot about lecture capture, don't we? How effective is it? I mean, we've just done 2 educational supplements. We found it quite difficult to get really good examples of lecture capture around. Is there difficulty with actually implementing some of this stuff and actually getting a relatively good, reliable source of technology and provision in these sort of areas? I mean, which are the ones that are quite difficult to implement? I mean, when you've done a complete environment, haven't you? But I mean, what some of the difficulties?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what the customer wants. I mean, we sometimes it can just be a fairly simple process. It depends whether it's a software-based product or a hardware-based product. I mean, something we're doing at the moment for London Business School is on a really large-scale project using MediaSite, is where a user will walk into the room, scan their card, their profile comes up and it immediately starts recording. So that type of thing is at the top end of what we may do in an education environment. But typically, it's probably slightly less than that in terms of an integration.
Chris, you've done a lot of research on these markets, haven't you, and stuff. How does the word collaboration fit in higher education and everything else? So, to the uninitiated, it's just a jumble of technologies. But where do you find, in terms of measuring what people are doing and how the technology is being used? How is collaboration? Does it differ from the business use of the word collaboration, or is it just basic communication between people? I know there's a clear, because education is ahead of business in so many ways in the use of this stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's a long way ahead. If you look at the corporate market, we are still dominated by barcode click share, for example, and very dongle driven, because most of us, and there's a real generational point to all of this, of course. We see it. We've got a great grad program, and we see all of our grads come through, and they can't figure out why we're not downloading apps, because most of us don't want to do that. And, so I think in the corporate space, we have a different generation. A really great point that was made earlier on is this kind of coming through K through 12, expecting that interactive, collaborative experience, coming into higher ed, where quite often you have faculty members that don't really want to change the way they teach. Bit of a sweeping statement, but that's the point.
No, I think you're right
and these
there.
guys are now coming into corporate, and they're demanding that experience. We're starting to see some of those hit decision-making levels. So that collaborative piece in corporate is changing now. I think in education that's been around for a long time. It's just kind of what you want that to do. Do you want that to be one way? Do you want that to be to all of your students? How much feedback do you want? So it's an incredibly competitive environment, and we're seeing a lot of the platform guys now wrapping that sort of piece into their their platform offering. So I think that's quite a converging market, if you like. But I think absolutely in education, it's all about kind of 21st century learning is something we talk about a lot. So not testing for testing's sake, trying to build skills that take you out into the workforce, and to do that, it's all about collaboration and learning and learning in groups. And I think that's one of the big trends that we see in the education system in general in the UK. I think that's replicated outside of the UK as well.
Is it? Is the UK leading in that regard then, would you say?
I think the States is catching up now. The States is catching up now. Yeah, I mean the UK has always been leading because we had the the big push to interactive whiteboards in every classroom. So that didn't necessarily follow through into everyone teaching that way. I think that's been a big learning process and training process for a lot of teachers. But I think now we're at that point. To your earlier point about what are the challenges here, I think it always used to be a hardware point, and now I think decision makers have got to think about content provision, they've got to think about software, and that's before you get onto the cross-campus stuff and security and all the other things that wrap around that. I think the UK leads the way.
Phil, how does a major vendor look at the education space? Because you're going right across schools as well as higher education, aren't you? But obviously within your market sector it's difficult, but how do you view it? Do you use business almost as an example of a model, or do you look at individual technologies?
We specialise in lamp-free technology. We've seen a lot of exposure in the primary and secondary, and obviously we're now looking at the university market. And it is, for us it's a challenging space because it's bringing a new technology to market and also trying to kind of understand and kind of get yourself into the head of both the end user and the integrator to try and make sure that you're bringing products to market that are actually relevant for installation. We're looking at 4K product now. 4K is a big buzzword around in the industry and certainly at ISE this year. So we're considering, not just, yes, we produced a 4K projector, but the reality is how does that content get from the computer or the tablet or the server to the projector, and that's where it kind of wraps into the systems integrators such as GV. So for us it's a challenging sector, and it's trying to understand it the best we can to create the right products.
How much quality feedback do you get? I mean, does it get to the point where you're almost designing product based on it, or is that too simplistic an assumption?
It tends to be very much on the job. So it's talking to people, it's talking to integrators. It's for example, things like this. We get to pick up information which is then fed back through the local subsidiary right back to R&D, and then we have great challenges sometimes from a language barrier, from a technology understanding barrier, to actually getting what we know we need actually to the point where it's actually produced and then comes back in a shiny box, and we can then offer it out to our customers.
I thought ease of use and ease of implementation would have been major factors coming back through, I would imagine, education environment.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, there's certainly a surge for lamp-free technology in the university market now, and certainly looking at when you consider the implementation, if there's a requirement to replace projectors, it's quite often you need scaffolding or scaffolding towers. So when you're considering not just the initial installation but the ongoing maintenance of projectors like that, if you can reduce the amount of times you need to hire in scaffolding or related expertise to do that, then obviously that's a significant benefit, or well, we'd like to think it's a significant benefit to both end users and systems integrators alike.
Yeah, I mean, from a university point of view, access to teaching rooms to do maintenance like that is really difficult. Obviously, space is at a premium, so they're scheduled teaching in there, all day, every day. So failures are really critical. I mean, it's the same in the corporate world. If that meeting room goes down, £1 million deal or whatever goes to the wayside. But it's like having failures in teaching rooms is almost getting to a point where it cannot happen, because we get projectors go down or whatever, that's 30 to 60 students all affected at the same time. My university, like others, NSS scores is really crucial to us. So you don't want the students to have a bad experience just before they're going to fill in a student survey saying, what was the technology like at your university? That we don't want that to happen. So investment in that good quality, robust equipment, longevity such as lamp-free projectors, it just makes it last a little bit longer. It helps us maintain that quality of service all the way through.
I mean, that's quite an important point. I mean, business criticality, which is your version of it, and it's very huge in companies themselves, but it's evaluated differently. Do you have a way of evaluating what you would call business criticality in the way your technology is used and maintained? Do you have a sort of a sort of what do they call it, a downtime type of gauge that's 99% uptime on various things? And do you have a sort of contractual way of dealing with it?
Yeah, we have
your vendors.
Yeah, we any downtime is bad, but just
Yeah.
because of the way that the teaching is scheduled into the room. So we do have a small AV team. We have a big campus. We've got multi-site campus. 500 plus teaching rooms.
Yeah.
That's really difficult to manage. So we do have an external AV contractor in for the service and maintenance contract, which we can call in. 8 hours later, hopefully everything's back up and running again. Because we have nowhere to move people if that room fails. So we have to try and make it as robust as possible and have contingency plans when things do go wrong.
I mean, it's getting really complex, isn't it? I mean, lots of moving things, and lots of this smart campus idea. I mean, for an integrator trying to manage this, I mean, it's usually one integrator, I'm assuming, and do you have partners in these big contracts, or is it your sole responsibility to manage multiple environments within one HE customer, for example?
It depends. Up and down the country, universities do different things. We have customers where we're on site full time, and we are their AV team. We also have situations where we're called out and we support them on a call-out basis. And it can be for their centrally bookable teaching spaces. It can be for specific systems that we've done which they need a higher level of support on. So it really does depend from customer to customer as to what level of support they call on us for.
So in a way, are we talking about a connected campus? I mean, what's the official phrase? Is it a smart campus or connected campus, or what is it? It's just so I'm up with the recent trend. I mean, otherwise,
I think
journalists like this sort of stuff.
I think they call it smart campus, but
smart campus,
yeah,
of course, and what else?
Adam and I was talking before,
as opposed to what, a dumb campus?
I don't know.
Is something without technology a bit dumb, is it, or something?
No, it depends what smart really means. I mean, does it mean that you're walking into a space and everything reacts to something that you're wearing or a card that you're holding? I don't know. I just don't see the education sector there yet on a campus-wide basis.
No.
I mean, certainly there's always going to be spaces which have better technology than others. You go into their lecture theatres, they invest much more money in those spaces because they need to.
Yes.
And that could have a link to their BMS system. It could be under lighting control. It could be have a variety of different smart tech. But do they do it wide scale across all the rooms? I think at the moment is no. But as an integrator, we're certainly watching that space carefully because that's where we can add some value and take the opportunity.
What about central management, all these sort of traditional IT skills we used to have? Looking at the background of the average AV manager and technician, in 6 years since I've been involved with looking much more closely at education, you've had a lot thrown at you, haven't you? It's amazing what you've had to pick up and run with, and extraordinary what you've achieved in that time, and where the skills come from that. And you're managing some, especially network configuration. It changes at the end of each year, doesn't it? I mean, that's a complex IT problem for most companies, but that's your normal environment for HE, isn't it, in a sense?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we've been lucky. My university, our networks team is very, very supportive for AV. So, quite a number of years ago, we started doing things using Crestron Room View. So we have all of our rooms connected together from a maintenance point of view, and early indications when we got things going wrong. And we've recently just completed a project which is completely AV over IP. That's device control, multicasting the video, Dante for audio. That was a big learning curve for us and the integrator. and everybody involved in the project actually, but you know, it's a significant cost saving over traditional ways of delivering that solution. It's given massive flexibility for that building. But yeah, from a learning curve from a technical point of view and getting it all up and running, it was steep, you know, it's hard work. But it's all about early engagement with the right people. So, you know, from day one, getting our networks team on board, getting all of our partners on board and saying this is what we need to deliver, and making sure the infrastructure's right, and then you get there. But it, you know, it can be tricky.
It can be tricky. Well, don't do yourself down. I mean, it's the damn sight more complex than it can be tricky. It's a bloody miracle you get it done, in my view. But yeah, Phil, you know, it's also internet sort of world really. How is your particular area of technologies, if I can call it that, adapting to this sort of smart environment? Is it becoming almost like a sensor rather than a fully blown machine with its own amazing functionality? Is it just one of a number that has to be controlled with the environment, or are you building more stuff into it? Is it built-in intelligence, or how is it going to develop in this new environment?
It's a very good
in
question.
Your view?
I mean, for
a
essentially,
bit future this, I know, but you know.
Essentially, some people will see the projector just as not a dumb endpoint, but it creates the image.
I didn't mean to downplay the technology. Don't get me wrong.
Thank you.
It's all right.
So for us, really, the network connectivity really relates to things like content delivery and controls. So what you class as standard HTTP control and content delivery, or network management. In terms of the projectors actually, having some kind of a smart feature, that's probably at this stage more limited to being able to just simply communicate back to the control system about its current state and any potential issues that it may be experiencing, that kind of feedback into the wider system, so that people like Adam can pick up on any potential issues that may happen before they actually do. So we're not quite at the stage of a true smart projector at this stage.
I mean, Chris, you come across this stuff early on by the way you measure the market, so I'm assuming you're picking up on new types of technology, what's being used in a complex environment early on. Are you picking up this Internet of Things thing in HE? And is it measurable? I mean,
it's very, very tough.
You tend to see this tech first, don't you, in a way?
Yeah, so we do actually. We just published, actually not through me, but we've just published an IoT and education report. So come and buy it. For me, kind of IoT is just a massively nebulous term, right? It's something that we all throw around, particularly as analysts, because we love looking 10 years forward and predicting what's going to happen. I think when you're pragmatic about how people are actually using this stuff. For IoT, I think a lot of it, if you really get down to it, is about how do you get an ROI, and most of that is down to lighting management, really. What we can end up doing with it is fantastic, and some great examples stay, but I think we're a long way away from that. From a display perspective, building more features into displays, I think that pendulum has swung back now, and we're beginning to see less so on the projection side, probably more now on the LCD side. We're beginning to see more fully featured products. So we saw kind of the Surface Hub come through from Microsoft. Now we've got Google coming, Jamboard, we've got Cisco Spark, we've got NEC launching a kind of integrated camera, speaker range, Sharp doing some stuff with WePresent. So I think everyone's all of a sudden, this is more for the meeting room, I suppose, in corporates, but is going down that feature-rich piece. And then in the education space, I suppose there's just so much more complication in who you partner with and how you take that product to market, because hardware is just a part of that discussion. Yeah,
I suppose this plays into your nice environmental credentials, doesn't it? Really, so we've got the environment. It makes it easy to measure and control kit that's suited to being environmentally friendly, if I can put it that crudely.
I think there's a lot of topics. We're hearing people talking about, the subject of eco-friendly and corporate social responsibility, and people are considering those types of things. And
I just went through the City of London yesterday, and the whole place was turned on with lights. Yeah. I couldn't see much eco-friendly malarkey going on.
Well,
the
LED lights.
Proponents of. Well, I know exactly. So I'm assuming the education establishment is leading from the front in this regard. I'm hoping.
Absolutely.
Is it? I hope so.
Well, yeah, sustainable campus is, a buzzword, but we've been doing it for quite a while. We do manage our racks, so when they're not being used, they power down as much as possible. Just leave the control system on, ready to receive the command to go. We've started to switching over to lampless projectors, but we do take care in selecting products to make sure they're energy efficient. So we're trying not to waste energy, needlessly. But there's a lot of teaching rooms, and there's a lot of kit. So it's kind of a, I do my best kind of thing with that. But at the end of the day,
Sure
we do use a lot of electricity.
Yeah. In terms of, Leon, the next thing is actually, the environment itself, and we're seeing a lot more environments themselves, not just technologies, is how you, is there a I think we talked about this earlier, didn't we? Is there a best practice approach to managing this stuff? I mean, touched on JISC, I think, quite late in the day, I thought, giving people a bit of guidance. But certainly with the work you've done at University of Hertfordshire is, everybody's doing a lot of their own things individually, but what can we learn generally, and can we start to produce best practice approaches to creating environments in HE and schools for that matter? Probably less of schools, obviously. They're far more individual, but certainly in HE, we see a pattern approaching for establishing some sort of best practice.
Yeah, and there are things out there like SCOMS, recently produced with a couple of other organisations, the Learning Space Toolkit, which is a kind of a guidance on the best way to deliver learning spaces. And it's brought from a lot of experience from a lot of different universities. The education is quite, I don't know whether it's unique, but we have a lot of groups, so like SCOMS, LTSMG, we tend to talk to each other a lot. The universities share a lot of information, talk to each other about projects. We're always visiting each other to see what we've been doing. Okay. So I think sort of, maybe informally in a way, there is a lot of collaboration between the universities, especially the technical, technologists like myself. We do kind of learn from each other, which is really good. And, that kind of creates a good community to sort of like not feel, when things go wrong, it's almost about sharing the mistakes as well. So, if you're trying this project, don't go down that road. We've tried it doesn't work. But I think we all benefit from it.
I'd certainly like to see more of that published. I'd like to see it and actually disseminate it much more widely than it is actually.
Just from the integrators' perspective, something that which we find really important is that internally they create, or the customer creates, an AV standards document, because sometimes the business can come within a university, can come from multiple different places. It can come from the IT department, it can come from straight from the faculties, it can come from estates. And what we've found and where we've had success is assisting our customers create those standards, so that immediately from a very early stage, if projects are being discussed internally, they know the relevant standards that university needs to deliver.
This all becomes more important the more you move towards traditional IT technology and in IT-enabled environments, which I feel we're walking towards in a way. We're seeing it in business, obviously, but seeing it obviously in education as well. Obviously, I suppose the network being the heart of network enablement, which is a bit anti-AV really, isn't it? It's not traditional AV, it's all cables and anti-networking environments in a sense. It's not software, is it? We are moving towards that in a sense. So in a way, you're sort of providing guidance to the business world about how you approach quite complex problems. Is that, you finding that? Are you feeling that?
We do have an AV specification and a standard for the university, which we make publish to everybody within the university. The key document we've found is good at the moment. We've produced an IT AV standards document, which when we're doing building projects, that gets sent out as part of the tender package to the main contractor, and that explains exactly how we want to deliver our services. It sort of goes from everything from cable standards, display technology standards. We draw very much on Infocom standards as part of that document. Everything down to comms room sizes, layouts, how cables are run, that kind of information to give to a main contractor allows us to, certainly in our last project and a few before, has allowed us to really kind of quite easily integrate our services into it, because it is all one thing now. You have to see these AV projects as part of a bigger picture. You have to be in on day one, because otherwise, especially with everything running over IP, if it's not there, you can't plug it in, then it's pretty useless, to be honest.
So it sort of leads me to my next question, really, just possibly a bit of an awkward one, is who really is in charge? Is it AV, is it estates management, is it IT, is it facilities management? Who is this across a number of interconnecting areas, or where does the overall leadership and the final say come from?
I think for us, you know, we're pretty good at talking to each other within our institution. So at the moment we've got a big campus redevelopment project, so it is estates kind of leading the way of what we need to do, and then we jump in with our standards document saying, okay, this is what we need to be able to deliver these services for the staff and students. But yeah, so I don't know about who's in charge. I think it probably varies depending on the project, but for us, for the big builds, we have to be led by the estates department really on what we're doing.
Well, I would expect anybody with a solution architect, AV and digital media, you've got to be in charge there, really. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I think we explored far too many issues in 20 minutes or so, but I think it gives us a good taster. Thanks so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you.